Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So today's video is going to be all about breastfeeding. So if any of you guys are new here, I would definitely recommend hitting that subscribe button. I would love for you to be a part of my channel. I'm a first-time mom and my baby is now 4 months old. So this video is actually going to be 2 parts. So for today's video, I'm going to be talking about my breastfeeding journey, my milk supply, the ups and the downs, the struggles that I have been through with breastfeeding. And then in part 2 of this video, I will be talking about all of the products that I have been using that have helped me along my breastfeeding journey. Before we jump into this video, I do want to make 3 disclaimers. Number 1, I am not an expert at all when it comes to breastfeeding. This is just my journey and the stuff that I have been through and things that have helped me along my journey. I did talk to a lactation consultant in the very beginning of my journey and that helped me out tremendously. I would definitely recommend doing that. Number 2, my body and my baby are going to be completely different from your body and your baby. So please keep that in mind. Certain things that work for me may not work for you, and the things that I've experienced, you may or may not experience. So please keep that in mind as we go through this video. And number 3, I really want to emphasize the fact that fed is best. So whether you are breastfeeding, formula feeding, or you're pumping and giving your baby bottles, as long as you and your baby are happy and your baby is fed, that is all that matters. So I really want to emphasize that. I will be breaking this video up into different categories. The first thing that I want to talk to you guys about is my milk supply. So rewind to September 22nd, which was the day that Harper was born. That is when my breastfeeding journey first took place. Your first day with your baby, this may be a little bit different depending on your hospital and your nurses, but my nurse decided to check and see if I had what's called colostrum within the first hour of having my baby. So right after you have your baby, your body produces what's called colostrum or liquid gold. This is what you feed your baby until your milk supply fully comes in. So I started producing colostrum right away. The nurse checked and it was there. Within, I would say about day 3 is when my milk really started coming in. Once I got home from the hospital, the first day, I wanted to pump and kind of see what I was producing because I wasn't really sure. So I pumped and I got about, I would say 1 ounce out. And I just thought that was the coolest thing ever and I couldn't wait to produce more. And once I got to the end of the first week, I would say, that's when I really started producing, I would say about 2 to 3 ounces. After about 2 weeks, I developed an oversupply. So I feel like one of the common misconceptions when it comes to breastfeeding is that your milk depends on the size of your breasts, and that is so not true. So I just figured, being on the smaller side, that I wouldn't produce that much milk, but I was completely wrong. So I developed an oversupply pretty soon. I watched a lot of other videos on how to increase your milk supply, and I just didn't think that mine would increase that much. So a lot of people advise that you pump in between feedings to increase your milk supply. So the first few weeks, that's what I was doing. In between Harper's feedings, I would pump. And this was a way for me to also build my freezer stash as well. Doing this actually kind of caused a lot of problems with having an oversupply. And I was able to produce about 5 ounces per side, which was so crazy for me. And I was able to really build up that freezer supply, but it did come with a lot of problems. I seriously would wake up in the middle of the night. Guys, this is how much milk I was producing. My entire shirt would just be like soaked. Like it would wake me up. And it would be like all over my bed sheets, just so much milk. So eventually I was able to kind of even out my milk supply. Right after I had an oversupply is actually when I kind of developed an undersupply because I was trying to get my milk supply down and I got it down too much. Now I can say I am finally at like the perfect amount, which is so relieving because it definitely took a while and it was not easy. Next, I kind of want to talk about my struggles and the ups and downs that I have been through with breastfeeding. It has definitely been quite the journey. I, to be honest, like wasn't sure if I wanted to share all these things just because I don't know why, like I felt like embarrassed to come out and share like how much of a struggle breastfeeding actually was for me. But I'm hoping that by sharing this, it could really help somebody else out because I watched so many videos on breastfeeding and the struggles that other people have been through. Right away, the first time that Harper tried to latch, I kind of realized that there was a problem. When she came out, like within the first hour, her instincts kind of kicked in and she was acting like she was ready to breastfeed, which was so crazy to me. And we did try right away, I would say in the first hour. That's when the nurse came in and checked to see if I was making colostrum. I was, and instantly we tried to get Harper to latch. She had such a hard time latching the entire time that we were in the hospital. We really couldn't figure out why, and I thought it was like my fault. It's really hard in the beginning when you're trying to figure all this out. Like you have this new baby, you're trying to breastfeed, that's new to you as well. And if it's not easy, it can be really hard because there's so many people around and it's just really overwhelming. Nothing against any of the nurses, but I had so many different nurses when I was staying there and all of them would give me different advice on how to help her latch. And it was so frustrating because one nurse would come in and be like, oh, you should try this. And then another one would come in and be like, oh, you're doing it wrong. You need to do this. And it was just really discouraging. The second day of our stay, we opted to have the lactation consultant there at the hospital come in and talk with us. She talked with us for about an hour and it was, oh my gosh, it helped so much. They have so much advice to give and like I said, please take advantage of that if your hospital has the option for you to talk to a lactation consultant. She right away figured out the issue with why Harper wasn't latching, and that is because she had a tongue tie. If you guys have been watching my videos from the beginning, you'll know I talked about it in my week 1 vlog of being home with a newborn, and oh my gosh, it was such a problem. After we figured out that Harper had the tongue tie, we still continued to try to get her to latch, and one of the things that I really didn't know and I was struggling with is how kind of firm you have to be when you first breastfeed. Having such a small baby, Harper being 7 pounds, I have this little 7-pound baby and I'm trying to get her to breastfeed, but I'm also trying to be like really gentle because she just seemed like so fragile and small. And the lactation consultant came in and basically told me to kind of grab behind her ears and really like push her head onto the nipple to really get her to latch. I was trying so hard to be so gentle and the lactation consultant literally came over, grabbed her head and just like jammed it on, and I was like, okay, that's definitely not what I had in mind. So that was something I definitely didn't know, but you really kind of have to be firm when you're trying to get them to latch because they know that they want to eat, but they don't really know how to latch. Tongue tie was the first thing that we really struggled with Harper. And the lactation consultant said that this tongue tie was one of the worst that she has ever seen. And she obviously left it up to us whether we wanted to get it clipped or not. She recommended that we do because it was pretty bad. So we decided to talk to our pediatrician at our first appointment and we decided to get that done. We had our first doctor's appointment literally one day after we got home from the hospital and she checked everything out. At appointment, Harper was actually starting to lose weight. So it is completely normal for babies to lose weight after they're born, especially when they're just getting that colostrum. It's completely normal for their weight to drop and then go back up again. But Harper's was getting almost to the point of concerning because of this tongue tie. When we got to the appointment where we got her tongue tie clipped, her weight dropped again, which was really disheartening to be completely honest. Right after she got the tongue tie clipped, I was told that within about 15 minutes after the numbing medication wore off, that she would be completely good to feed. That was not the case. she got her tongue tie clipped. We tried to practice feeding in the doctor's office. She literally screamed the entire time. It was so hard because I knew that my baby needed to eat, but she wouldn't. She was screaming in pain, and I didn't realize how emotional breastfeeding could really be until that moment. I cried like that entire day. Every time she cried, I would cry. And I just kept practicing and practicing with her. Her tongue tie procedure was done on Friday. She finally fed for the first time on Sunday, which was amazing. So that was our struggle week 1 with her, and I was so ready to put that in the past and just focus on being positive the rest of my breastfeeding journey. Well, that wasn't the case. So 2 weeks after we had the tongue tie issue, we had another issue where Harper got thrush. Now, if you have been through this with your baby, you know what a struggle this can be. Thrush is basically a yeast infection in your baby's mouth, and it can also spread to you as well if you're breastfeeding. I had no idea that Harper had thrush. Basically what happens is their tongue looks really white and they kind of have white patches on the insides of their cheeks. So the doctor told us that she had thrush, and instantly we put her on a medication. This medication was kind of a hassle. We had to give it to her, I think it was like 4 times a day. I mean, it's not the end of the world, but it was definitely kind of inconvenient to have to remember to give her medicine every 3 or 4 hours, along with all the other crazy things that happen when you're a brand new parent. After about a week, the medication was done and we thought we were in the clear. 2 weeks after that, I started noticing that I was having pain when I was feeding her. So when you first start breastfeeding, everybody tells you it's going to be painful. That is true. Your nipples, I'm not going to lie, hurt so bad, especially within the first couple weeks. After they get used to it, it gets easy, I promise. But those first couple weeks, it definitely takes your body a while to get used to that. When I started feeling pain again, I was just thinking, oh, like, you know, maybe that's just normal pain of breastfeeding. Breastfeeding for the most part should not be painful. There are moments sometimes when your baby first latches on where it could be a little bit more painful, especially in the first month or so. If they're latching correctly and you're still having pain, you might want to bring that up to your doctor. When that happened, I started to think maybe she has thrush again. And sure enough, I looked in her mouth and she did have thrush again. So we had to make another doctor's appointment, go in. We told the doctor, hey, whatever medication you gave us, it did not work because she still has thrush. We had to go on more medication again, and it did clear up eventually. When Harper had thrush the second time, I decided to strictly pump and feed her bottles, which it was a really hard decision to make because I wanted to be able to breastfeed and do that for her, because breastfeeding is a really good way to bond with your baby, and it's just a really special moment, and I didn't want to take that away from her, but I really wanted all of that to clear up. And I'm really glad that I decided to do that. My doctor said that I could still breastfeed even though she had thrush, which I did the first time. But by the time she got it again, I was like, I need to do something different. So I didn't want either of us to give each other thrush again. So I decided to just pump and bottle feed her. And I'm really glad that I did because it cleared up the second time and she hasn't had it since. Another struggle that happened after this whole tongue tie and thrush thing cleared up. At this point in my breastfeeding journey, I'm not gonna lie, you guys, I wanted to stop breastfeeding. I was so discouraged. It just felt like everything bad kept getting thrown at me. It's emotional. I was upset about it. Breastfeeding was starting to get to the point where it was just not enjoyable for me because something would go wrong or there was pain and it was just really hard. There was a lot of times where I was like, you know what? Going into the kitchen and doing formula and feeding her a bottle would be so much easier for me. And I decided that I would keep going unless one more thing got thrown at me and then I was gonna quit. I got to this point and things started to kind of look up and then something else happened. So like I talked about earlier in this video, when I developed an oversupply, that oversupply started to kind of cause some issues. Obviously, when you have a decent supply of milk, you have what's called engorgement. This is basically just a feeling of your boobs feeling really, really full and can kind of almost be a little bit painful. And usually that would happen to me after like 2 hours after I fed her. I would get that feeling of engorgement and I would have to pump or feed. And the more I pumped, the more my milk supply kept increasing. At a very, very young age, I would say at about 2 weeks, Harper started sleeping through the night. She would sleep from like 7 until 5 a.m. The second that she started really sleeping through the night, I started developing a lot of issues with clogged milk ducts because I would go hours and hours and hours without pumping. I know some people will set alarms and wake up to pump in the middle of the night. At this point, I was just so tired of pumping and just tired in general that I wanted to sleep through the night with Harper. So I would wake up and I would definitely be in a little bit of pain and I would pump and it would get better. But then I started developing clogged milk ducts, and this is such a painful and hard thing to go through. Clogged milk ducts, basically just a little lump that you get, and you have a duct that gets clogged and the milk can't come out, and it starts to get swollen and it hurts and it's so painful. At this point, I was just so over breastfeeding. Like, one more thing happened to me and I was like, I'm done. Like, I can't do this anymore. And I really had to train my body and try to get my supply down and be able to sleep through the night with her. And it was really hard and it took a while, I'll be honest with you guys. When you have a clogged duct, like, it's just like non-stop, like throbbing pain. I had to take pain medication for it and it's so hard to get out sometimes. There were some that seriously wouldn't go away for like days, and I was getting so concerned because it's really common to get a breast infection, which is called mastitis, and my mom told me about it, and she had one when she was breastfeeding, and it's horrible. You have to go to the doctor, you have to get medication for it, and just like all around, like I was so scared that I was gonna get that, and I'm so surprised that I didn't, and I'm really thankful that I didn't, but if you go days without getting that clogged duct out, it's usually gonna happen. I don't even remember how many clogged milk ducts I had. It feels like so long ago and seems like such a small problem now looking back at it, but I got quite a few. I would get like at least like 1 or 2 a week, and sometimes I would be able to get them out and sometimes I wouldn't. And I just couldn't focus on doing anything because that was like in the back of my head. So I literally would just spend my days trying to get the clogged ducts out. One of the big things that they say is like warm water, warm compressions with a washcloth, go in the shower, have the shower like hit whatever spot it is. And one of the things that I started taking that really, really helped a lot, and I actually got this advice from another YouTuber, was to take lecithin. So when I show you guys all the products in part 2 of this video, I will show you guys exactly which one I take. But the first clogged duct that I got, I remember sitting there crying in pain. It was like Halloween time. I was trying to enjoy a Halloween movie and I couldn't even watch the movie because I was in so much pain and so focused on getting this clogged duct out. Michael went to CVS at seriously like 10 or 11 at night and bought me lecithin. I seriously popped like 3 or 4 of those pills, which was like the max dosage. And within, I would say, an hour or 2, I was able to get that clogged duct out, which was so nice. What I started doing when I was sleeping through the night with Harper is I would take 1 or 2 lecithin right before I went to bed, and I would also take like 1 or 2 during the day. The specific bottle that I'm taking, it says that you can take up to 4 pills. So I would just space that out throughout the day. And basically what that does is it just kind of helps like thin your milk a little bit so that it won't get like built up and get clogged. That helped me tremendously, but it did take a while for my body to kind of get used to that and to stop getting clogged ducts. At this point on my breastfeeding journey, I'm 4 months postpartum and I am planning on continuing breastfeeding as long as I can. I don't have a set time frame of how long I'm going to be breastfeeding. Right now, we are in the stages of dealing with teething. Harper has been teething since literally, I think, like the day that she turned 3 months old. That's when we kind of realized that she was teething. So that is starting to kind of cause problems with breastfeeding. Not that she's biting or anything like that. She hasn't gotten there yet, but she is starting to kind of go on hunger strikes because it's kind of becoming painful for her to latch with her gums right now. So I'm probably going to make a separate video on advice on how to get through breastfeeding with a teething baby, but I am right in the middle of it right now, so I'm still trying to figure that out. When it comes to breastfeeding, if you are breastfeeding and you're going through any of these struggles, just know that it gets better. I had so many people tell me, like, don't worry, whatever you're going through with breastfeeding, like, it gets better, I promise. And when you're going through that struggle, you don't want to listen to that advice because you're just so over it and it just seems like such a huge deal when you're going through it. But seriously, guys, once you get through that problem, it gets so much easier. I'm at the point now where breastfeeding is pretty easy and I'm able to just feed my baby and there's no pain, there's no issues. It's just a nice moment that I get to have with my baby. Obviously, everybody's situation is different and you can choose to do whatever you want to do, but I really suggest trying to push through it and to keep trying. And if you do decide that it's too much for you and you want to try alternative ways to feed your baby, there is nothing wrong with that because that thought has crossed my mind so many times. But like I mentioned earlier in this video, part 2 is going to be all about the products that I used on my breastfeeding journey. These are products that I use every day to this day. And then there are also products that I use to kind of help me with different things like clogged ducts, sore nipples, and stuff like that. So I will be going into all those products in the next video. But I hope you guys really enjoyed this video. If you guys are struggling with anything when it comes to breastfeeding, please feel free to reach out. I would love to give you guys advice and help you out with that. If you guys did love this video and found it helpful, please make sure to give it a big thumbs up. I will talk to you guys on part 2 of this video. Bye!